YouTube, welcome to another one of these things that I sometimes do where I talk about Doctor Who figures that I have that are relatively new and we all have a look at them and say, oh, that is a thing that exists. Is that what you say? Maybe. So, you might remember last year we had the quite exciting, well I thought it was exciting, the Vortex edition 15th Doctor. I still haven't gotten around to getting the non-Vortex version, which I would quite like to get, but I just haven't yet. I should maybe look into that. But anyway, much speculation abounded after that as to, you know, will there be more Vortex editions? Presumably you won't just have a Vortex edition of just these two figures and nothing else ever. But what will they be? What form will that take? Well, that question has now been answered, and as of today, we now have we've got this little guy, and just as a treat for me, it's my favourite Doctor. They didn't do this for me. This is just incidental, but we've got my favourite. It's Jon Pertwee. So before we take too much of a look at this new figure, a bit of history for Third Doctor in figure form. So we first had a figure of the Third Doctor way back in time in 2009. For reference, I was 17 in 2009. I'm not 17 now. And that was when they released the original Third Doctor figure. I didn't get one until the following summer, but since then, basically they made two figures. They made Jon Pertwee. Well, they made one figure with swappable bits. There was the jacket and the upper legs were more or less constant, and there was a cloak that he could wear or not wear, and there was legs with boots or legs with shoes, and there was the shirt piece was swappable, so you could have him with a bow tie or with a sort of cravat thing, and they'd swap about variations thereupon, you know, cloak, bow tie. Did they have a cloak with a bow tie? I don't think we've ever had a figure with a cloak with a bow tie. There was a prototype from Invasion of the Dinosaurs of a cloak and a bow tie that never got released. Generally cloak was paired with the cravat, but sometimes you have a cravat, no cloak. Sometimes you have cravat and boots. Yes, we did have that. Sometimes you had bow tie and shoes. Sometimes it'd be the other way around. But essentially it was that figure. There was one head sculpt. I say one head sculpt. At some point early on, I guess something happened. I don't know if this was on purpose. At some point the face got narrower. They did 3 figures very close together, of which I have 2. And then the 4th figure was in the 11 Doctor set, and from that point onwards the face was just slightly narrower. I'm not quite sure why. I think it looks better narrower. I think it looks slightly more like him. But yeah, that was just a thing that happened. And the paint apps over time have been, you know, very inconsistent. We've seen him very pale, we've seen him very tanned, we've seen him with white lips quite often, I'm not sure why. And we've seen his hair go from grey to white to yellow to grey again, even though the most recent figure we've had of him prior to this was from the 5 Doctors, where his hair actually is pure white, and that's one of the greyest that they've done his hair, so that's fun. That's just a little thing there. But I have 7 figures of Jon Pertwee with this head. There are another 3. I don't know how. I think there's about 4. I think there's 4 that I don't have. There's there's one of him from the 3 Doctors with his bow tie. There's one in the green jacket with a bow tie from the Time Warrior. There's one from the Green Death, but with no cloak, which is basically the Death to the Daleks, which I do have, but with shoes. And there is the purple one from Planet of the Daleks, but they didn't change the jacket to make it, like, double-breasted. But otherwise, I've got most of the Pertwees that there are to be had. And all of these Pertwees have the same head, but now, right, so obviously you remember that story where it's a multi-Doctor story, but they're all the Third Doctor and they're all making the same face? Well, not anymore! Now we have a whole new head, and I think this is a really good likeness. Now, I'm well aware from practice that this very rarely, oh well, he has kind of focused. This camera doesn't like focusing, the lighting isn't great in here, so I filmed a load of B-roll earlier just to show you how nice this face is while I just sort of wax lyrical about it. I just really like this. The hair is interesting. I think it's more... So obviously this is meant to be Jon Pertwee from the Demons. That's the only story where this red jacket and the cloak with the purple lining and that particular tie. I've been hoping to see a Series 8 Pertwee without the tie, because we've had a Pertwee without a tie now. But they went with this, and yeah, it's nice. So yeah, the Demons, Season 8, they've given him gloves, which we don't very often see in the figures. Obviously the rings are still sculpted on there, but it's a faint enough thing. You can just pretend it's the bump of the ring through the fabric of the glove. Maybe. But yeah, Season 8 outfit, Season 7 hair, I would say. That's very sort of Ambassadors of Death, Silurian sort of era hair. I feel like the hair is probably going to be the thing that people are going to be a little bit more like, not sure. Because obviously, the aim was to have an earlier Jon Pertwee version. His hair started off shorter, it got longer and bigger and bouncier as he went along. And most of the figures have had sort of late Season 9/Season 10 length, which is, I think, in my mind, the sort of the definitive Pertwee style. But you know, his hair was shorter at the start. In some stories in Season 7 it's curlier than others. But I think within some stories it was curlier and then less curly. But yeah, it's a sort of Season 7 head. I know there was talk, very much sort of unofficially and unconfirmed, of a set based from a Season 7 story that we're not going to talk about because it never happened. But I would imagine that this head was probably sculpted for that and then just sort of reused. But this is the only jacket that Jon Pertwee wore that we haven't had a figure of yet. So it makes perfect sense to have a Season 8 figure, make use of this head, which is still, it's close enough. But gosh, the likeness is just, we'll probably be showing more pictures again or videos just to give you the gist of this. The face is, oh, it's gorgeous. It looks so nice. It looks, I always thought the original Pertwee face was a pretty good likeness. He looked quite sort of serious, which Third Doctor can be serious, but you know, he has a very warm smile when he smiles, and he can be lighthearted. He can have a cheery grin to his friends, and you know, they've captured that essence. They've captured the vibe of happy Third Doctor, which I love. And I said at the start of this that the Third Doctor is my favourite Doctor, and there's something about a warmth about him that I just find, you know, he can be a bit prickly sometimes. He can be a bit sort of channeled in to work within the system that he's stuck in, because obviously he's exiled to Earth and working for UNIT. So he has to be a little bit more sort of establishment friendly for that purpose. But it's just, it's just a very sort of lovable warmth. I think he'd be a nice Doctor to just go on a little adventures for. He'd teach you interesting things. And he just, I just like him. I just like him. I just think he's neat. So anyway, yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount to say specifically about this figure. You know, you can sort of see him next to the closest comparable figure, really, which is that awful Time Warrior variant that I'm not very fond of, because both have red jackets. But I mean, they're not that similar. The whole thing with the Vortex editions is that they're sculpted in the colours, plastics of the colours of the things that they're meant to be, and then the details painted on rather than cast in some random colour and just washed over with paint. Which allows for more detail, it allows for the sculpt to come through. And this sculpt, I love it. I don't want to sound like overly positive, but I can't help it. I just really like it. But we've got the jacket is similarly sculpted in red plastic, and then the various details painted on, and the cloak is black plastic with the purple painted onto it, and there's not a huge amount to say that's new. Really, aside from the head, it is the Pertwee we all know and love. But obviously, the other thing with the Vortex editions is they come with other things. And in this one, obviously, they've given him his sonic screwdriver, because that's an obvious thing to package him with. And they've also given him the Crystal Kronos, which is Season 9. And they've given him the Giant Maggot, which is Season 10. So we've been quite a loosey-goosey on era. It's a Season 7 hair on a Season 8 outfit, with an accessory from Season 9 and an accessory from Season 10. It's kind of round the houses, but it's, you know, it's, the presentation thing, it's a very general, here is the Third Doctor. And, you know, if you like the Third Doctor, then that's, which I do, he's my favourite, I've said that already, then that's great. I'll just take a little bit of time so I can show you the accessories, like the nicer footage of the accessories. I'm trying to make these a little bit more something to them, so that you get a better flavour than me trying to hold things up to the camera and like say, oh no, the lighting's bad, because the lighting's always bad. The packaging, just to continue the trend of non-specific eras, the background is the roundels from the Time Monster again. Similarly, a couple of pictures of the packaging for you to get. It's the same style of packaging that we had with the 15th Doctor and Ruby Sunday, the same box shape, the same design. That's the current design template, I think. It seems to be, that's what we're going with for now. And that's about all there is to say about the figure, but as you will have noticed, that's not the only thing that we get in this set. Because, and I saw this rumoured beforehand, people were speculating that they might do this, they've given us Pertwee Sonic Screwdriver in replica form, in little, you know, actual, the full-size thing. Except now it's got the metal sort of chrome finish instead of just being sprayed with silver paint. And this is the point where I can do something that no one else's videos can do, because if you remember my previous Sonic Screwdriver review, a couple of years ago when I did the 14th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver, I mentioned then that I have the prototype metal plated 3rd Doctor Sonic Screwdriver. So I've got 2 of these now. There are, I believe, 4 of these, according to a recent interview with Al Dior. There's 4 of these in existence. I have 1. I assume he has the other 3, though I could be wrong on that. But yeah, so unlike anyone else, except I guess Al himself, I can do a comparison of the prototype, and I assume this was made around about the time that these Sonics were first released, or maybe a little bit later. I think my understanding is that these were originally going to be for like underground toys, possibly. There was some retailer that sort of had a notion we might do a sort of these metal plated Sonics, a slightly nicer version of the toys, and it never happened. There's a couple of prototypes made and it never went any further than that. But yeah, so because of that I have this, which is probably like 10 years old, 15 maybe, and I've got this, which is a new one, and there are differences. So let's take a look at the differences between them. First of all, the most noticeable thing is the red of the ring of the emitter is quite a dark, it's almost a brown really, whereas on this one it's a very jaunty red. I think this is too red, the prototype. Would I have had it as not red as this? I might have been a bit redder, but I think the right colour probably lies somewhere in between the two. One thing, well, and it might not show so well on camera, but this red ring here is just ever so slightly closer to yellow, and this one is ever so slightly closer to magenta. There's very little difference, but they're two different reds. The other thing that is quite noticeable early on, if you look at them, we've got 3 thicker rings in this spiral, and on this one there's 4. And this is more accurate. The new one is I took a very good look at the prop. I looked at the Thunderbirds prop that the original prop was built out of, and yeah, this is more or less as it should be. And then on the handle, again, these black spars are thinner on the prototype. They're thicker on the proper version. This bit's very subtly different at the sort of white bit. And also on the emitter head, on the prototype the screws are red, and on this released version they are silver, which is more accurate. So for anyone that's not me, that doesn't have this prototype version, you might have the commercially released 3rd Doctor Sonic Screwdriver. I don't have that. Until quite recently, this is the only Sonic Screwdriver toy I had. This is it was just this and some pens shaped like Sonic Screwdrivers out of Doctor Who Adventures magazine. So I can't say how this compares to, aside from the fact that if you have a 3rd Doctor Sonic Screwdriver made by character options, it won't have this finish. So I think they look 100 times better. I've seen pictures of the non-metal plated ones and they look fine, but I think there's something about the metal plating makes it look, I mean, it makes it look like it's made out of metal. It doesn't feel like it's made out of metal because it's warm, but it definitely is an improvement. The other thing that's different between these two is the sound effects. So the prototype version, and I imagine the commercially released version that doesn't have the metal plating from ages ago, has 4 sound effects. It's got, which is the same but slightly higher pitched. It's got, and that last one I think is a very sort of Sea Devils specific sound. I feel like that's the noise that it makes when the Doctor explodes the landmines. This one only has 2 sound effects and they're very similar. We've got, and we've got, they're the same, basically the same noise, but one of them smash cuts in, the other one sort of fades in lightly. Otherwise, it's just that those are the only sounds it makes. But yeah, so that's the difference between 10-plus-year-old prototype metal plated Sonic Screwdriver toy and now commercially available to buy Sonic Screwdriver toy. They're similar, they're not identical. And personally I'm quite glad. This one definitely has a few things that I think are better. The metal screws, the more accurate spiral is nice. I'm glad that they're not identical because, this is all kind of like a special little thing that I had. This is like, no one had this. Now everyone's gonna have something a little bit like this, but just like not quite. And so it keeps this special, but it means everyone else can like have one. I feel like that's a nice, like a best of both worlds. Like I'd have been happy if everyone had this. I'm not like selfish. I don't begrudge other people having a thing I have. It doesn't have to be unique to be special to me. But it's nice that it still is. And it's nice, it also means that although I've got 2 of them, they are different. I can differentiate between the 2 of them. So that's about it really. Will there be more Vortex edition figures? I imagine so. I don't know what they'll come packaged with. I don't know which Doctors we'll see. I'm very excited. Are you excited? I hope so. Are you going to buy this? Do you collect them? I mean, I would imagine most people that are watching these probably do collect them. Yeah. Who's your favourite Doctor? Is it Jon Pertwee? Comments welcome. This figure was made available as of yesterday, so you might already have this figure yourself. And if you've not decided, then hopefully it's somehow been helpful to see how very, very excited that it makes me. Are you similarly excited by Jon Pertwee in miniature form? Well, then you'll probably like this too. Yeah, that's it. Enjoy the figure if you get it. Enjoy your day either way. Yeah, bye.